and welcome to So This is Thailand. I'm Tapani Manawe. สวัสดีค่ะ
I'm Johan Wimonchalao, Swadee Krap. And joining us, since it's Bring a Kiwi to the Studio Day, is...
That's right. I'm Kip Sanbeck. Thanks for joining us on So This is Thailand.
Well, it's nice to have you back in studio. I don't know if a lot of people who are watching might recognize this handsome face. He was actually with us with Morning Talk for many years.
That's right.
And you're filling in for Valerie this week.
That's right. Absolutely. So it's a pleasure to be joining you here on Channel 9.
Well, here we all are. It's the young crew today.
Well, usually it's 2 girls and 1 guy, and 1 girl and 2 guys. It's not
Ah.
bad.
Not a
Moving
bad
up in the
ratio.
world.
Well, starting off the week, as we always do, or starting off every program, we have the talk of the town. Big thing coming up this week is a little change in diet.
Well, yeah, the J Festival, of course, if you have been around town, you'll see all the red bags, yellow bags and yellow flags all around town. So that's the main thing that's going on this week. And the J Festival will go on for 10 days. Any of you eating vegetarian?
Oh, I eat vegetables with my meat all the time.
I actually do eat vegetarian most evenings, but not religiously for a 10-day period once a year. It's interesting because in the West, a vegetarian diet is all about the vegetables. There's also milk. There's also eggs for many people. Some people even eat fish. But here in Thailand, of course, J means no vegetable, of course, loads of vegetables, but no garlic, no onion, no dairy products, no eggs.
Yeah.
So it becomes a little bit more complex and has actually seen a big impact on the economy as well this year with the prices rising, skyrocketing in fact.
Yeah, I think like the Chinese vegetarian diet is closer to what in the Western world they would call vegan vegetarian. So no dairy and no smelly things like onions, garlics. That's there.
Well, you mentioned the prices going up. It's something we actually see every year happen right before, obviously the economics of it, people know that there's going to be a high demand. Do you have any statistics on, how much of a price increase are we looking at?
Yeah, so the most noticeable jump would probably be the humble cabbage, jumping from 18 baht per kilo to 160. And some of this is actually exacerbated by merchants holding back their products to wait for the J Festival to start and then selling them at the escalated price. Other things that are seeing a rise in prices, Morning Glory from 22 baht per kilo to 30 baht per kilo, and the Chinese kale or kana 15 baht per kilogram to 70 baht per kilogram. So it's been projected that each person will be spending around 8,100 baht during the J Festival.
During the course of the festival.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing for 10 days. So that's what,
Those are
800
some
baht a day?
Those are some steep increases, though. I mean, I wish I would have
Absolutely.
shorted my vegetable stocks there and make a nice little profit.
Well, one hopes that it'll be a windfall gain for the growers of the crops because they don't get to share in the windfall gain from rice pledging. They're stuck with the market prices. But I suspect that may not actually be the case. You're talking about merchants holding product back. And so it's actually the quintessential middleman's role to take all the profits, which seem to be steeper this year than in previous years.
Sure. Well, for all the expats out there who have never been here in Thailand during the J Festival, it's like Tara mentioned, it's easy to find all the shops that have them out there. It's those little yellow signs, those little triangle yellow signs with red on them.
Yeah.
And if you are a meat lover, they do have a lot of dishes with the red pork, obviously made from soy products. And there's a lot of your favorite. You can actually get kapao musap.
Yeah, the mock meats.
Yeah, the mock meats.
That tastes so much like actual meat, but I don't know, it's healthier or something because it's not actual meat. It's made from soy and soy protein.
Well, it's good for a few days a year to think of the animals and think of ourselves and our health. But it's interesting because this year actually you take, for example, a Thai dish like khao gang. It's actually more expensive, a lot more expensive now to eat the vegetarian J version than it is to eat the version with the meat in it.
Right.
Which I think is a first for me anyway here in Thailand over the last 12 years.
Yeah, the situation's kind of reversed because you kind of think that if you eat vegetables, it's supposed to be cheaper, but not exactly.
Well, moving along, looking at markets, a lot of you are aware of the situation in the south and that recently the insurgents down there spread some rumors and also handed out some pamphlets saying that no commerce should occur on Friday because in the Muslim faith, it's supposed to be a day of rest, much the same as in, for Christianity, we have a day of rest on Sunday. And so a lot of the vendors down there were quite scared, obviously closed their doors on Fridays, didn't open to the public. A lot of the shoppers, the customers out there also stayed home. But good news is a lot of the merchants, they kind of came together, held a little rally and put out a strong front and said, listen, we will not be intimidated by these insurgents. And a lot of them opened, so you have about 80% of the shops have reopened again. Good and bad, they said they're open. A lot of customers still a little hesitant to come out because of obviously the fear there, but they're trying out there, which is really good.
I think the key issue here is having respect for other people's faiths as well, but it's important to show local solidarity, to actually show that a very few, small number of people cannot control the will of the majority, and it takes acts like this. I think they're very brave. But hopefully this will be an ongoing trend, not to give in to the insurgents, but to actually lead their lives as they wish to.
Yeah, and I mean, once upon a time, they used to be able to coexist, right? Years and years ago, before all of this kind of started, the tension started to build up into the extent that it kind of got out of control. There were, trade on Fridays, and this used to go on. So it's back to normal.
And they've actually talked with, looking at the religious aspects of, they've talked to some of the religious leaders, and they actually, came forth and said there is nothing really explicitly against doing commerce on Friday. So a lot of it was just, as you mentioned before, trying to propagate that fear out there, trying to, a small group trying to affect a large population. And it's good to see that, some positive steps that the community is saying, you know what, we're not going to stand for it anymore.
And we see our Muslim neighbours to the south, such as Malaysia, parts of Singapore, Indonesia, they have no problem trading on a Friday. So as you say, it's an illogical claim by a very small number that are trying to influence a large number through fear. So this is a good sign, I think.
Well, sticking with our production, our produce here, and talking of markets, Kipson mentioned in the beginning, looking at the rice pledging scheme. Well, a lot of people probably do want to scream about it, a little Freudian slip there. But believe it or not, since we all know that Don Mueang Airport has now reopened and lots of available space for out there, the key now is looking to use the warehouses which are located, or a lot of the empty warehouses, to store all this excess stockpilage of rice. And they're looking at over 12 million tons of stockpiled rice. Now, we talk a lot about these big numbers, 12 million tons. Exactly how many is 12 million tons?
Well, let's take a calculation. We eat about, 100 grams of rice probably per serving, per person. So how many servings are we talking about here?
Well, that's about 10,000 servings per ton.
Right.
12 million tons, you're talking about 120 billion servings, 65 million people in the country. People at home do the math. You're talking about feeding everyone within Thailand a lot of days, a lot of meals. So, these are phenomenal numbers that we're talking about. And, obviously there's the controversy over, is this rice pledging scheme, is this stockpiling of rice beneficial to the country? Are the people who are, the farmers out there seeing a benefit from this? And it's going both ways. Obviously, inflated prices, more, technically profit, but is the money actually flowing down to the farmers at the end of the chain?
I think that's a difficult question to actually answer. Certainly the average farmer, they may feel better off, but I'd like to flip it around and look at it in another way, which is that there's around about 8 to 10 million tax-paying Thais. The majority of Thais do not farm rice, and effectively we are gifting a large amount of our taxpayer money to one single group of people. Rubber farmers don't get crop pledging. The vegetarian growers of the J Festival, they do not get crop pledging. It's just rice farmers alone. And the government is trying to create this monopoly where they will actually drive up the demand long term. Now, it's possible this may actually work. But in the meantime, there are huge costs of storage, there's costs of funding. It will take a very staunch resolve because it's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after. It will take 3 to 5 years, if at all, we can create this driving up price for Kauhom Mali and the other types of rice that we produce here. I think the government really should focus on branding Thai rice because actually people will pay for a premium brand, whether it's Apple, Microsoft products. There are so many great brands out there, but we're not working on that. We're working on restricting the supply to make other people hungry so that they'll pay anything for our rice. It's a difficult call to make whether it's the right strategy or not.
It's the issue of a wastage that bothers me the most. I think, like, you know, with people going hungry, and then on the other hand, all of this rice being stored, and if not stored properly, it will just, you know, with the humidity and everything, as you've seen with the Longan schemes and things like that, they go bad. And it's just a shame that so much of it is being wasted.
Well, that's some, you know, some of the critics who are saying, you know, why are you storing rice at an airport which was never designed? It's not a facility designed for the storage of rice, and obviously, you know, you get things like moisture damage and, you know, the mold, which pretty much waste the product there. And a lot of you, if you have been reading and catching up with the news, might have noticed that Cambodia, actually in a recent survey or contest, whatever you call it, actually has claimed the most delicious rice, or whatever you want to call it, the best rice in the world, you know, usurping Thailand, which has traditionally been always at the top. So you're having companies which have lower production costs, higher yield, and coming up with a flavor which is comparable to our own. You know, looking at the AEC coming up, Thailand's really going to have to do something to remain competitive.
It's fair to say that we have a great brand of rice already, but we've restricted the supply so much this year that people have to turn to something else because they can't necessarily find Thai rice. If it is true what the government say, that we are actually able to sell and we have these government-to-government deals going through, then I think a lot of what we're debating today is probably less important to worry about this year. The same conversation will come up next year and the year after, as long as the rice pledging scheme continues and we're paying above market prices for rice. The rice traders, the rice merchants don't have any product to be able to sell here in Thailand or sell abroad because they simply cannot buy it at a break-even price. So we're waiting with bated breath to hear more about whether it's an MOU or whether it's a government-to-government contract, because in either case, this is freely available information that should be shared with the taxpayers, because let's remember, it's Thai taxpayers that are actually funding the rice pledging scheme. Whenever we talk about government spending, we're actually talking about people who pay tax, giving their money to the government to spend it on something.
Oh man. Let's talk about something a little more happy. You guys are going to like this. Rounding off the talk of the town, we're going to talk about a phenomenon which has been taking Facebook by storm, in Thailand in particular. We're experiencing an unusual epidemic of young women posting photos of their breasts on Facebook. This is just an attention-seeking, oh, you have illustrations too, look at that. Attention-seeking thing to get likes from boys. And there is a Facebook page that's dedicated to this that has amassed over 400,000 likes. This is being reported in a Komchatluk newspaper, which is rather worrying. So the Ministry of Culture is obviously not very pleased about this and is appealing to girls not to do anything that can be qualified as obscene or illegal.
Well,
Thoughts?
It makes you wonder, you know, obviously, what is this purely like a peer pressure where they're just wanting to be liked? You know, are we looking at, you know, a sense of self-worth, or is there something else behind it? Because why would you post something which is really going to stick around for a long time? You know, a lot of the people who are using Facebook, you need to realize that whatever you post on there, it doesn't get deleted. It's a public traded company now. Those images are not yours once you post them up there. They can be redistributed. They can hang around. They can come back and haunt you 20 years from now. Are they just doing it because they're young teenagers and they want to have a wild streak, or is there some other, you know, motivation behind it?
I'm quite sure they're not actually aware of what will happen to these photos. They think, oh, I'll just post it, and a few days from now it'll be gone. But it's not really like a short-term, sorry, forgive the pun, storm in a teacup. This is actually something that will plague them the rest of their lives. So I think the long-term consequences are something that as a teenager you usually do not think about. But is certainly something that perhaps the parents, that's the person that I would be asking, where are the parents in all of this? I can understand if someone's 18, 20, 25 years old, their body is theirs to do with as they wish, provided it doesn't break the law. But we're talking about underage teens here that are also posting these images as well.
Yeah.
So, what do you think as a woman?
Well, I don't know. I think like it's a kind of a cultural thing where, do you know when you go to restaurants and stuff, you see people taking pictures of their food and like holding it up to their faces. Like Asians and Thais love to take pictures. And so if you post something and you get a lot of likes and a lot of comments, then, you know, it kind of, I guess it makes you feel good or popular. And anything that has nudity or a lot of skin is gonna get a lot of likes, I guess.
Well, it's an age-old marketing scheme, as you will. You know, you look at any type of publication. You know, not just television, not just the internet. You go back 1,000 years, sex sells. You know, we know that. But you know, as Kipson and Tara had mentioned before, we've covered the stories about morality and how, especially our youth here, seem to be getting some bad habits, not understanding the ramifications of their behavior as well, and hopefully it's something that the parents should be involved. They should know what's going on online.
Well, to wrap it up with the Department of Mental Health suggestion, you should think twice before you post.
We'll let you think about that twice as well. Well, coming up after the break, don't go away because we do have V-Talk with myself. I am visiting Impact and they just won a recurring, a little tongue-tied here, another international culinary contest. It's the second time in 3 years that they've done it. They actually won gold. You know, there's so many chefs up there, and they are absolutely phenomenal. We're going to get a little behind the scenes about what dishes they made, which brought them to the gold. And then afterwards, I believe Yut is going out to show us something about buffalo milk. Who would have thought?
Do stay tuned. We'll be right back.